Hey guys, welcome to a Consult ROI podcast. I've got Danny again here. We're today talking about learning styles. All right, so get off right into that. If you don't know what they are, you have auditory, visual, you have learning, you have, auditory, visual. So auditory is people that hear, learn through hearing. Visual are people that learn through typically reading or writing. Or I guess those kind of mix over into two ones. There's reading, writing. That's a separate learning style. Visual learners are people that more watch through or learn through watching other people do it. And then there's the kinetic learners, which are people that learn through actual hands-on process. So those are the people like me who don't really learn very well. Like I'm more visual and hands-on or kinetic learner. Just meaning that if I'm really confused about something, I might watch somebody do it like YouTube, right? Or get some ideas from them. And then I will figure out the rest by hands-on learning and by taking action on that. But there's other people that they need to listen to 500 things before they can figure it out. They need to read different things. They need to look at 5 billion different charts and all this other stuff before they can learn it. And that's not knocking, it's just making, like, just be aware of these different learning styles as you proceed to that or through this. So that way you can make sure that identify who you're talking to and how to communicate with them if you have a different learning style. So for me, again, if I'm going to communicate to somebody who's more auditory, I'm going to have to be very careful on the verbiage that I use and break it down, even though it's going to be aggravating for somebody like me. That is like, for example, if I start explaining something or giving a biography to somebody that is a learning style like myself, that's going to aggravate them. But I also know that in order to communicate with somebody that is that, that's how we're going to do it. And a quick way to identify something like that is they're going to ask a lot of clarifying questions typically. So somebody who's auditory and that they constantly need to do either ask clarifying questions for you and they're going to always clarify if they have confidence or comfortable with you. Whereas somebody who's visual is just going to watch and keep silent. So that's going to be typically their learning style. And reading, writing, and that they're probably going to just ignore you and then read a book later.
Yeah,
But
maybe.
Danny, I will let you take over at least to this point.
Yeah, absolutely. So learning styles are always interesting. And, having worked in several different corporate environments and being a certified facilitator for integrity selling, there's a bunch of them out there. And I don't think that's to say that, one platform or one methodology is better than another. But I think that they're all really, really good. And the thing is kind of we were talking before we hit the record button of like just doing instead of kind of getting into these eternal loops of rah and information seeking, which we'll talk about probably on next episode or so of taking action.
Yeah, next week we are going to discuss that, which is essentially how much it's information overload is what I'm going to end up calling it. So everybody gets into information overload where they need all the answers. They need all the like everything to be absolutely 100% certain before they make a decision on that. Whether it's 100% certainty that your business that you started is going to be successful, whether it's 100% certainty that the relationship you're in is going to work out, or whether it's 100% certainty that a God or creator or whatever exists. That happens in all aspects and all aspects of life, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So that'll be a good conversation. Be pretty interesting and stuff. So excited, looking forward to that. So make sure you tune in next time too. So in this, I'm just going to share my screen here. I'm just going to touch on some of the ones that I've had experience with, and we'd love to hear in the comments and things of what you guys have experienced as well. Let's see. I'm going to share this screen right here. Let me know if you can see that when it shows up there, Cameron.
Yep.
You see that? Okay, awesome. So the first one I want to touch on is Clifton Strength from the Strengths Finder. So I don't know if you've ever read the book here or you've gone through Clifton Strengths, but these guys focus on 34 overall areas of that, and then they kind of boil it down to what's most dominant versus what's less dominant inside there, and ultimately kind of boil it down to the users as to 5 key areas that that they have. And so their high levels are strategic thinking, relationship building, influencing, and executing. And then, as I mentioned, goes into like 34 different themes or areas inside here. And as I went through and explored my top 5 strengths, what that actually came out to be was woo was the number 1. I guess I like to woo people overall. Number 2 was positivity, and hopefully, during these calls and stuff, you've received some positive energy, from us inside here. And then number 3 was strategic, and number 4 was communicator, and then number 5 was arranger. And it's kind of interesting to, now that I know about these things, of at least how Strengths Finder kind of looks at me of doing Clifton Strengths. I'll hear people say, "Oh, hey, Danny, nice job in doing this." And just one silly example was that we were recently meeting with a group of people. It's another department, and they had their whole team in there. And I'm kind of like I call myself an honorary member of their team, and they're all going to lunch. Nothing's better than like a good corporate lunch that someone else is buying, right? So, and so I'm like, hey, it's kind of worked my way into joining their team lunch so I could get to know their people a little bit more to build those relationships and things. And while I did that, I was able to get 2 other people from that I worked with on the bus as well to get get the corporate lunch. And so as we did this, at the end, someone goes at the end, one of my friends that I worked with said, "Hey, nice job in brokering that lunch," is exactly what he said. And as he said that, like, I got to thinking about it. So I'm thinking like woo, positivity, strategic, communication, and arranger. That's exactly what happened here. And I did it, I guess, probably maybe somewhat naturally throughout that process. But he noticed,
Well, I think that's an
the
important
brokering
thing to
lunch, right?
notate. Yeah, that's an important thing to notate here, is that when you are tying into like your skill set and your best communication style, as well as your best learning and teaching style, you will thrive within an environment. So just like Danny here, like, he really channeled into his strengths, and so when he got put into that position, he thrived exceptionally well because of that fact that he tapped into those. And success, if you've listened to our previous episodes, success is when preparation, like years of preparation, meets opportunity. So it's not when magically something that happens. Everyone makes the hugest mistake, um, that they think that magically everybody's overnight success. It's
Right.
no. It's literally years and years of knowledge, preparation, and everything else. Sometimes you do get lucky, right? That luck is essentially the opportunity, but you have no idea how many people are lucky, but they didn't have the skill set to capitalize on that opportunity because they didn't have the skills at the time that they were presented, because they weren't prepared, they didn't consider it, and they pushed it off so far. So this is where not only is it help you to identify what your learning style is, so you can learn more effectively and more streamlined, and identifying those key characteristics to say, like, because some people do not know the best way that they learn. But the reality is, if you think about it, again, what is going to be the best way that would you rather somebody hands you something and you figure it out, or would you rather somebody shows you and steps you step by step? Would you rather read a kind of a book that gives kind of a breakdown on the pros and cons of the different solutions? Or are you going to listen to a podcast like this? Because some of you are going to be listening on Spotify, and that's the reality. And I can still learn like that as well. It's not just like because I'm a more kinetic learning style doesn't mean that I can't learn auditory. In fact, I do listen to auditory constantly because I don't have time otherwise, right? I
Yeah, you're
can't
just
watch
working it all in.
videos while I'm driving. Well, I mean,
Yep.
I could, but it just might not end well. Um,
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, no, I appreciate you pointing that out. And so, yeah, it is that luck versus, where preparation and opportunity meet, and being able to know that it might behoove you to pay. I think it's like $50 to take the actual Clifton Strengths here, and it's absolutely worth it. And then now it's also kind of validating too, as you mentioned. I didn't
we're not
realize I was
sponsored by them, by the way. I'm just want
exactly.
to clarify that this is
None of these are
something Danny
sponsored,
has done
right?
in his career.
That's exactly right. So this is just one example. The next that most people are probably familiar with is the DISC profile, the DISC, throughout the whole process there. So D is dominance, you got influence, you got steadiness, and then can you say that for me? Conscientious. Jeez.
Yeah,
I
conscientiousness.
was going to say constituents and stuff, but conscientious.
These are
And
constituents, sir.
And so when you take the DISC profile, which many of you probably have, we'd love to hear what yours came out to be. Let's see.
If you don't know what it is, it's fine until you get into the Fortune 500 world. I
You
think
probably
Danny
might
takes
not
a
come
lot of things for granted, and that I don't get me wrong. I've done this as well, where I will think that, oh yeah, everybody's done this, but the
a lot of
reality
people
is a
haven't.
lot of people have not. Like
You
a lot
haven't.
of people haven't even done the color personality tests, let alone.
Exactly. And that's another
I've done
one,
a lot
another
of
example
Facebook
that
surveys, though. I know who you are.
Who's your celebrity that you're most like? So what dog
We
are you
all
most like? But like,
we all know that Danny here, the Disney princess that he represents, is brave. So
oh yeah, that's exactly it. The red hair and everything just screams, So
everything.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And so with the DISC profile, a lot of people will be like, oh, I'm a high D, I'm a low I, I'm a medium S, and a high C. And so they basically have like these lines kind of coming across the graph as to like what do you most dominant in, what are you least dominant in, and that kind of makes it up.
Just
Now
give a
what's
broad
interesting,
overview and kind of what those mean, though, for the
yeah,
people
so
that are listening and not seeing your screen.
for sure. So D for dominance. So people that are like, you might hear, that person's totally a red personality or a type A personality. In this case, it's a D. It's a high D. And they come in and they kind of like command the room. And we all can probably think of people that we've worked with, and maybe it's yourself. And keep in mind, none of this is better than another. Just because you're a high D doesn't mean that someone's a low I or a high I. Neither is better. It just
Well,
is what it is.
you'd be surprised how many people they think they're a D or alpha or a red or something like that.
Yep.
And the reality is, anytime that they're actually put into a leadership role, things fall apart.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's
Exactly.
where, like, being aware of this also doesn't mean to like constantly channel into it, because there's a lot of times in that, like, I'm not doing a very good job of it right now, but there's like, I will typically hand the reins over like entirely to Danny or one of our team members or something like that, because I'm trusting them to take care of that and step into that or have that opportunity to learn that. And I also know that when I would do that, especially if I'm in a room where I'm not familiar with the people or anything else, chances are there's always somebody more experienced in that room than me.
Sure.
And at that point, it's my opportunity to learn. And so a lot of the times, being dominance doesn't mean that you're overriding, you're completely shut everybody down, you control everything. It means that you have a more assertive role, right? You can make clear-cut decisions very quickly, and that you might not always be right, but you can at least be assertive and make that execution upon those plans, right?
Yeah. And where other people are opposite of that, that's just unnatural for them. And it's like, fish out of water for them. And so for them to
Yeah,
now
if you're afraid
understand
of
that,
public speaking, that's you.
what's that? Yeah.
If you're afraid of public speaking, if you don't like being in front of people in attention or being judged, that's typically like you're the opposite, right? You're a very blue personality, more passive, more of a support role. It doesn't mean that your role, it's the same thing. You obviously have the spokesperson, and then you have the person writing the script. if the person writing the script didn't do a good job in that, then it also would set up the person speaking to do a bad job. So the roles are very mutually reliant on each other, but it doesn't, again, it doesn't make one superior to the other or
Right.
anything else. It's
Yep.
job roles. Understand the job roles, understand what they are, that person thrives in. And then you can also, it doesn't mean also that you can't allow them to eventually develop or gain confidence or step into that role more. We have employees all the time that come from a very technical background. They prefer to sit behind a computer. They don't want to do anything where they're going to be in front of people or even have to
Mhm.
talk to people. That's fine. Doesn't mean that I'm not going to give them opportunities to have that, and be able to connect with people and to build and expand their skill set. So
Right. And so kind of what you mentioned is maybe that S in study, the steadiness here of the DISC. So dominance, influence, steadiness, and conscientious. And some of that, so steadiness, they tend to have calm, deliberate dispositions and don't like to be rushed. But they're also like, hey, I'm not out, in the spotlight here. So I'm not a high D. I'm not going to like just command the attention, but I'm also going to do a good job of keeping that steady, consistent thing that you need. But then now knowing that, they know that they might have to tap into their high D sometime if they're leading a meeting when they normally wouldn't, when they're called on. And if they have the right,
they're the rock, they're the foundation, and that.
yeah, and they're going to be champions. They're loyal, dependable, it says, and everything there. And then, yeah, second one was influencer, enthusiastic, optimistic, open, engaging, trusting. And then the last one here, the C for conscientiousness.
So the I people are the ones that are overly friendly. They are the customer service. They're the sales reps. Those type of people that are very good at making, like, if you feel somebody, like you connect with somebody and they just make you feel like $1 million on that from day one, and they are kissing
Yeah,
your butt,
I have a high
and
I.
like they influence, and they seem to always gather all the crowds of people. Those are, again, the influencers, the people that are able to build that connection, build that rapport extremely quickly, and have a very likable personality.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, some people might be in a sales role and they might be a low I, but now that they go through this, they're like, okay, the I is unnatural for me, being open, optimistic, enthusiastic. That's just not me. But now that they know when they need to turn that on, and they can turn that on. It's honestly, like, I kind of relate this to people. I'm not good at swearing, but people that are very good at swearing can turn it on and turn it off like a switch, depending on who they're around, right? I think we've all been around people that are like that. I'm not good at swearing, so I don't do it at all. But people that are very good at swearing,
I didn't
and
realize that was a thing of being good at swearing.
hey, honestly, there's people that I admire how well they can swear. I gotta be honest, like I swear there is. And no, but they do. They
Swear.
can, now that you're
That's
talking
about the
about it.
most swear word that you will ever hear Danny say is "I swear."
Oh yeah, exactly. Oh man. And so, but they now that we're talking about it, pay attention to your circles of influence and just watch people, and you will notice people who will kind of go off and talk like a sailor, and then turn it off the second someone else comes into that conversation. And it's like an art that I don't have. And so we talked about some of that steadiness, kind of that calm disposition. Don't rush these people to make decisions or to hurry up on something. It's going to get done when it's going to get done. It's going to be a good job, but they don't like to be rushed. And then last but not least is the C. So DISC. And so the conscientiousness in here is people like to have this on the C's, is to have independence. They love the details. And But they don't want to be wrong. So they're going to research, they're going to get into the weeds. They're going to like basically say, I don't want to, like, they might not even like want to talk to people as much, other than give me all the information that I need to make a smart decision. But
They're
I'm not
very
going to
afraid
say
of being
something that's going to
wrong.
put me in a bad position.
Yeah, they're very, very afraid of being wrong. And meaning that they will make sure that, like, that's what gives them kind of that fear of speaking, or fear of speaking out, and that because they don't want somebody to judge them if they are wrong.
Yep.
Whereas
Yeah.
a more dominant person is not going to care as much. They're just like, hey, yeah, I screwed up, whatever else, and they move forward, right? So there's kind of that balance between the two, and it's not like it's all one or nothing. That's the biggest misconception that I think a lot of people have. We're all
Yes.
a mixture of all of these.
We're all a
It's just
combo.
like that pyramid, and that's where you have the three corners, which is time, quality, and price. So you can only choose two of them, right? So because you're basically choosing one side of the triangle, which one do you want? And that's where the key is, in understanding that kind of dynamic. So if you're dominant and consciousness, it just means that it's kind of this might irritate some people, but this is Obama was very good at this. He had a very dominance type personality, and he also had a very conscientious personality, meaning that he had to be. It was why he was so measured on every way he spoke. It's why he took the time and drawed out the sentences, which annoyed some people, but he had to thoroughly think through how he was going to speak and how it was going to be perceived prior to him actually speaking, which is why he was a lot more of a polished speaker. Now,
Yep. A
regardless
good
of policy
example
and
of
that,
not what you
yeah,
say, but how you say it, right?
yeah, exactly. I still have a lot of, like, I might not have agreed with any of his policies or anything else, but again, I had a lot of respect for him on how he was able to speak and being very articulate and likable in that sense, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I admire him for how good of a father, he is and stuff. He's outside looking in
At
at
least he
least, right?
perceived, right?
So,
At least
exactly. So,
what was on TV and what we were able to see from that, right?
right, exactly. And so, yeah, so again, none of these are better than another. But what's interesting to me is that the high D's, regardless of how many different trainings and things like that I went through, the high D's always come through and just like, anyway, just me speaking, but they would come through and be like, almost like usurp that as like a badge of honor. Oh, I'm a high D. Oh, you're a low I, dude. I'm a high D. Like, and I mean, it's just natural for that person to do that because it just goes along with what that dominance is. But every time it's almost like high D. That's us right here, baby. Like,
Man,
uh,
he make
uh,
fire.
yeah,
Yeah, it's very much the caveman. Hey, granted, it's all the excessive masculine energy that comes out with stuff like that. It's the people that love to be that. And granted, I used to be the same way in some aspects and everything, where I was like, oh yeah, I'm one of the it's all the elite, the leaders and everything else, but it's not how it works. It's very much if you have that personality and that, because I'm very blunt, outspoken, I can be demanding in that. I expect excellence in my guys and that just as much as they like. I hope that they expect excellence in me.
right,
Um, and that's where
exactly.
like it this trades off too, right? Because you can have these characteristics and they can be very beneficial for you, or they can be very toxic for you.
Yeah,
Toxic meaning
exactly.
that dominant and everything. If you're demeaning, if you are degrading, if you use that dominance or authority to kind of put others down instead of build them up or hold everybody to a higher standard, then that's where it becomes toxic. But when you do hold everyone to a higher standard, when you do say, like everyone starts panicking, like say a disaster's happening, earthquake, and that a lot of other personality types, they're going to be the ones that are panicking. They're going to be the ones that freak out. They don't know what to do. They shut down, especially if they're like if they are S, they have steadiness or conscientiousness because basically their whole world got turned upside down.
Hmm.
They now are outside of their comfort zone. They're
Right.
thrown. Whereas a D
Yep.
will thrive in that environment, and there's like, hey, get your crap together. Let's do this. I need
Yeah.
you to do this. I need you to do this. I need you to do this.
Yep.
And it might not always be the exact perfect answer, but it gives everybody clarity and a mission task that they can now, the rest of the team can now execute upon really well and pulls everybody out of that funk or that
That's
ditch
exactly
or that
right. And
situation they're in.
if you're not a high D, now that you know this and you've taken this through, you need to know when you need to exert your D. So, you know, you could be a high S or a high C and a low D, but then in a certain situation, now that you know, you're like, okay, this is uncomfortable for me, but it has to be done. And that's when you can step into that role and do that. And so that's why each of us has like a little bit of everything, but you can move into that. Now, the next one I'm going to touch on here is the Myers-Briggs. I'm not going to go too deep into it. They have 16 different categories of different things there. Again, going off of my own experience right here. I think I took this test probably in about 2002, probably 20 years ago, honestly. And I'll always remember it, but I came out to be a ESTJ, and that was for me. So here we got with Myers-Briggs, they measure 16 different categories of extrovert, sensing, thinking, and judging. That's what that one is. They have all these different like codes or ways of kind of going about what it is. And so but yeah, Myers-Briggs is the category. These are really popular, very well known, very trusted in organizations that can take people through these
so
things.
Granted, this is more of an overview. We're not saying to go out and do all of these.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, you don't need to do all
exactly
these.
Getting into the next podcast, which is the over information. Because if you are always trying to look at, oh, hey, I need all the answers for help me figure out me, then you're not going to ever actually make progress in yourself, right?
Exactly
A
right.
lot of this is actually implementing and then going back into executing consistently on your goal, doing the mind map that we've discussed in previous episodes and everything else. Now, where this comes into play is helping identify other people and where their strengths are and everything else. It doesn't mean you put other people in their place. It means, hey, with Danny and that, I know, for example, he has a lot of personality where he will take the initiative and do stuff and make sure that things get done and that. And I know that he thrives with that environment, right? He thrives in a lot of that, but he's a lot more risk adverse, right? So you're not going to necessarily, you don't want necessarily a lot of the responsibility of like running an entire Fortune 500 company, and you don't want that stress or the headaches or anything else, which is why you've been where you are, but you thrive in where you are, where it's more of an entrepreneur, right?
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. 100%. So yeah, good point. And like all these are just like, this is just sharing just food for thought as to like, what does that look like? And to Cameron's point, those times that we get caught up into, well, you know what? I took the Clifton Strengths and I didn't like that I was these 5 things. I took the DISC profile and I didn't like the graph that it put me in as a low D, a high I, a medium S, and a low C, or whatever that was. Or if I came over to, hey, I took the Myers-Briggs assessment out of these 16 categories, I came out an ESTJ, but I really think that I am an INTJ, like meaning like introverted, you know, and anyway, it kind of has all these different
categories. You have a lot of instability
in
your life. There's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of stresses. There's a lot of unknown factors. And there's that lost sense that you have in yourself. That's when you're going to feel a lot of this. It's where you don't have a lot of certainty about your goals, where you want to go, which is why I do encourage people to figure out and do the mind map first, because that will help give you clarity and everything else. But the other thing too that I think is important is you are evolving in that. When you are going through and becoming these or learning different skill sets and everything else, sometimes feeling like multiple different, or oh yeah, I could do this, I could do this, I could do that. It's very easy to go after all those shiny things is what I call them.
Yep, shiny object syndrome, right?
Exactly. Or ADOS is what I called it and dubbed it, which is the attention deficit shiny. There's always the new idea. There's always the good object or the new thing that people want to go after. It's the same thing with, you might feel like, oh, well, I could actually fit into 12 of these and so forth. And this is where I would challenge you, if you do feel like that, then go out, get some experience, get some good understanding of all those other things, see what you liked about all of them, what you didn't like about all of them, and then create your mind map around that. But when you just consistently are going out and saying, well, now I want to be this, or now I want to be this, and oh yeah, I love the variety and everything else, like you're lying to yourself, because that's not providing consistency for you. And it's also what the reason I know that you're lying to yourself is because of the fact that name anybody that likes working on their house or something 24/7 that never ever ever gets to have a moment of rest, and they just constantly live in chaos.
Right. And then
Right?
what does that look like for the people around you at the same time? Right. Whether it be your spouse, significant other, your children, people, maybe a boss or people that report to you. What does that look like for them of bringing any stability or consistency or confidence and competence in your life when you are scattered all over the place? Like it's not sustainable for them as well. And then that
Yeah, if
creates,
you're keep on trying to change roles and everything, and they need you to do sales or they need you to do customer service, and you're trying to bounce all over into these other departments and start causing heck there, it doesn't matter how helpful you think you're being. You're actually causing more damage than good because of that inconsistency and the inability to create a mind map and execute upon that. And now, if, like, for example, you might love building. And so you're like, well, yeah, I would be fine living in a construction project all the time because that is awesome. But the reality is people that actually thrive in that are the people that finish the job, build it up, and then move on to the next one. Because there's always more stuff to be built, right?
yeah,
But they finish it. And I would challenge you to think it and look at yourself and then realize that the reason that you're not having a lot of success in your life or a lot of achievements or a lot of what would you call it? Not satis, not necessarily satisfaction, but recognition for your achievements or a recognition for you as a person. I would arguably say that it's because of the fact that you don't get to the finish line. It's like you running 50 half marathons. Yeah, you did a lot of running, but you didn't finish any of them. So
right.
finish what it is.
Exactly. Yeah. Finish it out. And speaking of finishing, what I want to do is round it out with integrity selling. This is one that I've trained hundreds of professional sales reps on. And what I love about the integrity selling, they call it the behavioral styles. And it really comes down to these four categories of a talker, doer, controller, and supporter. And as we go through this process here, it's like the DISC. But then it's like, okay, well, what's the D again? And the I and the S and everything there. Like, I just love integrity selling because it's like, it just naturally, it's like, are you a talker? Are you a doer, controller, or supporter? And so talkers, as Cameron pointed out, they're the type of people that tend to be professional salespeople. Oh, you've got the gift of gab. But does that mean that someone that's a supporter or controller that can't be a salesperson? Absolutely not. And so as we kind of go through this, a controller is going to want the details and
I
everything. The
prefer
doer,
supporter.
what's that?
We prefer supporters in our sales roles because they're the people that are like, we do like our biggest company is tech support, so they need to understand how to support that company and help them thrive within their roles and help them accomplish their goals and everything in order for us to really thrive in our job, right? Because they can talk all day, like a salesperson can talk all day, and those are the people that are good at like car sales because it doesn't necessarily care about like there's nothing to necessarily support. There's nothing necessarily to do besides following up on your leads. But a car salesperson is like, hey, either you have the car or you don't, and are you going to make sure that the person is comfortable while you're there? But at the end of the day, is the car fit their needs or does it not, right? And I guess that can kind of be tied into supportive, but that's more of a commodity as opposed to an actual like tailored or consulting type situation. So anything that is a higher level, if you want to make more money, if you want to build it, then get into a higher specialty in that, which does mean like if you look at any higher Fortune 500 executive job, you have to be more of a supporter, a doer, and develop the gift of talking.
You got to do all
Talking
these things, right? Like, because everybody's looking at you from every single angle of like doing really, really well at a lot of these things, right? But it's also being important to recognize, what your strengths are, where some of the weaknesses are, and then to fill those gaps. And sometimes that comes in the form of building a team. So I might be the talker type, but then I'm not so controller type. And so what's fascinating about this is that
hand it off, right?
yeah, exactly. You can leverage people that are really good at those other things. And so you'll notice that controller is the opposite of talker. And so where they say opposites attract, and what is out of character or out of naturality to me is in a complete alignment with my wife, for example. She's a controller. She gets things done. She gets information. She's like running with things.
Well, controller and a doer, right?
That's exactly right. Because you have some of each in here. So me, I'm more the talker supporter in there. But and so as I kind of go through this, we all kind of know the golden rule, right? Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. But as I'm looking at my bookshelf here, I wonder if it's just sitting right here. I don't have it. Where'd it go? Well, there's a great book out there. It's called Radical Candor by author's name of Kim Scott. She worked in Silicon Valley and Google and all these companies and stuff. And so we all kind of like live by the golden rule as a good place to start. Be a good person. Do unto them as I do to myself. Okay, perfect. And so as I kind of went through this, Kim Scott talks through this. And as I've gone through integrity selling, and I'm like, you know what? I think there's a higher level to this, but I couldn't quite articulate what that higher level was. I knew around it and stuff, but Kim Scott in Radical Candor does actually nail it. And she calls it the platinum rule. Do unto others the way others would have you do unto them. Do unto others the way others would have you do unto them. So I might be a talker, but when engaging with my wife, I can do unto her the way that she would want it done. Because guess what? If I could do something,
that goes into the love language.
Exactly right. If I go do it the way I think it should be done, it's like oil and water for her. That's not what I had in mind. She's going to tell me, right? And then we might get in some argument like, "Hey, I can't read your mind" and all that stuff, right? But
the biggest common one to understand with people like this is if your love language is physical touch and hers is acts of service, and you just go up and think that grabbing her butt is going to magically support her, it's not going to feel. She's going to get pissed off at you. She's going to punch you probably square in the face, right?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Understand that the acts of service is more important, which means shutting up, helping her do the dishes. Now, as we've discussed here too, it's important to notate that we are all of these to a certain degree. It's just we're not ever 100% one, like all one thing. And as you get more well-rounded, everyone says, "Oh, that's so bad," and everything else. But the reality is if you at least know enough of the other aspects of the pie, it also allows you to communicate better. It allows you to do better. It allows you to also make sure and delegate better to understand what the person needs to do within their role to help them thrive. And when you help other people thrive within that, that's really where you get set up for the most success. Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No. You're exactly right. And so
home.
The love languages are just another thing that we didn't even have a chance to touch on, right? And so the whole thing is basically it's the platinum rule is the way to go, in my opinion. Do unto others the way others would have you do to them. As a talker, being a controller is unnatural to me. However, I know when I'm in situations where I'm engaging with the controller, I need to match their level of whatever that is. If I'm a supporter, I need to match a doer's level. If I'm a controller, I need to match a talker's level. None of these is better than another. But as Cameron said, he loves hiring supporters and working with supporters because they're going to be methodical. They're going to take the time to do the job right. But they might be working with somebody that's a doer that says, "Hey, I need this done yesterday." And so there's a balance for them and an opportunity for them to say, "Okay, I can appreciate the way that I'm engaging with you and you're engaging with me. I don't appreciate how I feel right now, but I can appreciate where you're coming from as a doer needing to get stuff done." And then that supporter can then rise to the occasion, so to speak, in the way that the doer needs it done, if that makes sense. And so that's my biggest takeaway from all these is doing unto them the way that they need to have it done to them. And that is still aligning and engaging with them, but it's talking to them in their language. And you could still be you and do the things that you're going to do, but getting into their lane of talking their language will then allow you to then control that situation and get the best optimal outcome that you're looking for.
Absolutely. So the biggest thing that we wanted to take away, though, at the end of this is that you need to recognize how well or what the person is, because they might capitalize or use multiple different things,
right?
Or multiple different styles and that. And so you can, especially when you're first learning, it's very easy to kind of mix them up or not understand. But the reality is, if you let sometimes it's honestly the easiest thing is to ask them, especially if you are more of an employer role like me. I can usually recognize well enough in that and see how well they thrive just based on how well they interact. But when you don't know that, that is where, because believe it or not, as much as people think that talking is one of mine, it's probably one of my least skills, right? I I use filler words constantly. Yes, I guarantee there's some of you that are irritated by those. It irritates me just as much to listen to myself. So
But
I
now
know
you're aware of that, though, right? And that's the thing. You have an
I'm
awareness
working
of
on
it,
it.
and
Okay,
it's something
man.
that you can
I'm
work
working
on.
on it.
Okay. And then you listen to somebody like a motivational speaker and a top podcaster, Ed Milet. He'll actually say, I didn't realize I was such an introvert. No wonder I'm so exhausted after engaging with people that I love engaging with, but I'm exhausted at the end of the day. So talk to people that are introverted. And when they put on their talker hat and they do the song and dance as a talker, they are physically and emotionally and mentally drained after that because it's
It is
unnatural.
literally, I would prefer literally an 8 hour day in the gym compared to a 3 hour event in I would literally prefer 8 hours in 110-degree weather, working out in the sun, and that all day doing heavy construction with concrete molds than I would typically 3 hours of dealing with like a very social event.
Right. Yeah.
Like
Because
physically taxing, that is the equivalent to me.
right.
And
Exactly.
I also know that I cannot be successful. I cannot build a brand. I can't help other people if I don't. So I also know that if I don't exercise those muscles, they will never get better.
100%. And now that you're aware, you can go and take any one of these tests. Like we said, like none of these are sponsored or anything. These are just the experience that I've had in learning about these. And now that I know, I can be a better me. I can be a better communicator. I can be a better leader by connecting on a more personal level by
Here's
the
actually
way
a
that
great,
others are.
so I just thought of this, but just here's a really, really great way to know if you really understand or can understand other people. So pick out one of the personality groups, right? Pick it out and say, hey, I want, you know what? I think that this person is this because of X, Y, and Z, and this is how they would answer all the questions for this personality test. But always already make the assumption like, okay, hey, I think that they are a dominant person,
Yep.
and I think that they have these personality traits, and this is their skill sets, and I would assume this a person that does these answers also follows the next, like that has
Yeah.
this is
Do
their second
a test
common
on
one.
someone else. Yep.
So if you answer that as if that you were them,
Yep.
that also helps you understand if you are like if you can actually understand that perspective. Right?
100%.
It's
Yep.
easy to you to identify what you are close to, and that at least for some people.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. Because that's a great way to do it. Because if you're like, you know what, I'm really struggling with this person, do a test on someone that you're struggling with at work. And then you'll see after doing that, doing yours, you'll see the differences between the two. And you're like, oh, okay. It's not that they're a horrible person. It's just that I did not understand them the way I understand myself.
You can't hate somebody you fully understand.
Yep.
It's literally impossible. You cannot hate somebody that you actually understand.
100%. Well, man, this has been a fascinating episode. At least for me, I love talking about this stuff. And you know, regardless of the platform that you use, go and use it. Go do it. Go figure it out. See what you are. See what someone that you struggle to communicate with is, and then make a better you. Engage better now that you can understand and appreciate where other people might be coming from.
Yeah, stop trying to find differences. Try to start finding a commonality and understanding.
Yep.
Through doing that and everything, again, I guarantee you will have a lot of hatred, contention, everything else go out of your life, and you will actually bring people closer to you as opposed to repulsing so many. or not doing or excelling or connecting with as many as you would like. Because at the end of the day, the old saying goes, your network is your net worth. It's not about who I know necessarily, but I also know that it's who they know. And does everybody I know, can they actually say good things about me? Can they actually say that I'm there for them as a person? Can they actually say that I try my best to understand them and do these things for them, right? And actually do that. And that's like, again, if you can recognize their learning personality style or their love language or anything else and just serve them in the way that they want to be, that little act goes beyond.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I will tell you right now, if you can find a client, you can identify pretty quickly what their interest is, if it's acts of service, if it is words of affirmation, if it's whatever, right? And you can tap in on that and give them some notice in that, just showing that you took the extra time to get to know them and truly know them, as opposed to just calling them out of the blue or harassing them or trying to expect a sale. That will drastically change the results in your life.
Absolutely. Give that a shot, you guys. Let us know how it goes. Let us know what you find out about yourself and let us know how it goes. Let us, put it in the comments, reach out, message us. That'll be awesome.
Yep. And again, next week, we're going to talk about overload of information. So stop doing it. Stop trying to get more information. Just take the first step, right?
Time to go and do.
Prep yourself with the mind map. Go back a couple episodes. All right.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Camron, for this today. Appreciate it. Thank you guys for listening in.
All right. You guys have a great day. Again, we appreciate you having us. Remember to like, share. Otherwise, we can't get the word out. We can't help other people. We can't help them thrive and all grow collectively as individuals. So catch you on the next episode. Peace.
Peace.